Good to go. Good evening and welcome to the council meeting of the 29th of July, 2019. We are using Facebook live streaming on Facebook Live. There is no live interaction, but you may leave comments. The most up-to-date meeting package is on the Town of Kentville website. This is the last council meeting of the summer. We will meet again for council on the 30th of September, 2019. This meeting is called to order. Have all of the councillors received and reviewed their meeting packages? Does any member of council have information pertaining to a matter before this council which has not been publicly circulated? I will remind members of council that we are in decision-making mode and we should be mindful of our decision-making wheel. We have committed to making balanced and respectful decisions and adhering to our code of conduct. We will be voting by electronic ballot on all matters except administrative. And are there any conflict of interest issues we should be aware of before the meeting commences? Councillor Gerard.
I believe it's in camera, but I may have one coming up, just to give you a heads up.
Okay, thank you. And in camera, you will be requested to leave the room for the duration of that conversation.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that was my intention.
Would they be open for the public at this time or not?
Again, as with, we've had various correspondence, when they're addressed to council, try to make sure that you are, that you receive it, but at the same token, make the author and you aware there's nothing for you to do with it, essentially, as there is no request.
Since we have nothing before us from Open Arms at the present time, I would request that they be stricken from the agenda.
Are you making a motion?
I would make that motion, yes.
All right. So we have a motion to strike items B, A, 6B, A, B, and C. All those in favor of striking this from the agenda?
Did you get a secondary, Your Worship?
Oh, okay. Oh, I need a seconder for that motion. Sorry. All right.
I'm going to ask a question.
No, not until we go into discussion, please.
Well, okay, but I'm so irate at this moment that I'm prepared to step out of this chambers because this is insane. These are public letters. I don't know about this, even though I have declared a conflict of interest because I had the integrity to do so. This has become embarrassing to be part of this charade that happens here. I don't know about these letters, but the reality is this council has done everything to shut down what the public knows.
I'll probably call point of order right now, so
Thank you.
I'll put it back to you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Councillor
Sorry.
Andrew, please wait for discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion that has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Councillor Andrew? Are you
Well,
satisfied?
pretty much said it, but
Okay.
I will say that it just it's that attitude that comes. And this council, I'm going to say, I am not privy, and my fellow councillors should know that, I'm not privy to any more, probably privy to less than they are, the information than they are about the progress and what's happening with this project. It's just more of the stupidity of let's muzzle certain people, let's muzzle certain projects, and it's embarrassing. I
Okay.
find it embarrassing to be associated with this council. I'm really disappointed.
Thank
So
you.
I don't care how people vote, but that's my thought.
Thank you. Councillor Bolland.
Thank you, Worship. I'm not going to vote in favor of this. We need to take the emotion out of this. This is a democracy we have here. We are an open council. We're not in another country where letters are quashed, etc. So
Thank you.
I think we need to be open to any opinions by our citizens. So
Thank you, Councillor Bolland. Councillor Maxwell.
Previously, when we were discussing this project, members from the north side of Kentville sent letters in, and they came in early before this matter had reached council, the same as these letters, and those letters were held back until the issue had reached council. And so I'm just asking for the same consideration to be given to these letter writers as were given to the letter writers on the north side of Kentville.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Are we ready for the question? The question is on removal of items 6B, A, B, and C from the agenda. So the motion is on removal of this item from the agenda. So a yes means it's removed, a no means it stays. Voting is now open. Councillor Andrew? Thank you. Voting is now closed. And the motion fails, so therefore they remain on the agenda as per correspondence. Thank you. So if I could have a motion to accept the agenda as presented? Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We'll move on to approval of the minutes. You have before you the June 24th, 2019 council meeting minutes have been distributed. Are there any errors or omissions? If not, the minutes are approved as distributed. If yes, the errors will be corrected by the recording secretary and annotated in red for the electronic file. Moving on. Business arising from the minutes or unfinished business. We have a recommendation for the special events bylaw second reading. CEO, did you want to speak to that, or should we go directly to the recommendation?
Perhaps we could go directly to the recommendation, as this has been out there for some time.
Okay, excellent. It is recommended that council approve second reading of the proposed amendment to the special events bylaw, chapter number 100, regarding the amendment of the part 4.11.3 to replace residential futures with large lot residential, which is consistent with the definitions of the Kentville's municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw. First reading was resolved on the 24th of June, 2019. Thank you. Second? Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that council approve second reading of the proposed amendment to the special events bylaw, chapter 100. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you. Moving on to our next piece of unfinished business, the Nova Scotia Power easement. CEO Phillips, did you want to talk about that one?
It's a quick report, Your Worship.
Okay,
and
thank you.
It's been hanging around for a while.
Yep.
Nova Scotia Power has requested a distribution easement at 567 West Main Street in Kentville, identified at the following PID. which is property that we own. The background here is that the property has a stormwater pumping station, which requires infrastructure including power. Nova Scotia Power has requested an easement. Again, that pumping station is in relation to West Main Street and all the stormwater that comes down West Main, just for your reference. The easement does require the approval of council, and as folks will remember, I think it was Councillor Ballin at the time, said I would be happy with this so long as the solicitor endorsed it. So our solicitor has been working on this particular file for some time and has the satisfaction of Nova Scotia Power himself, and is now ready for us to sign with your authorization. The recommendation is that council approve the attached distribution easement at 567 West Main Street to Nova Scotia Power Incorporated in order to provide electrical services. Your worship.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that council approve the distribution easement to Nova Scotia Power at 562 Main Street. Is there any discussion? Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you. We move on to our recommendations and reports from the CAC, and the recommendations arising from the CAC meeting will be presented and moved by Deputy Mayor Savage. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. The first recommendation to council is regarding the Regional Recreational Needs Assessment. At the July 8th, 2019 meeting of the Council Advisory Committee, Director Bedingfield presented the 2019 Recreational Needs Assessment Report. Highlights included a consultation session with targeted workshops, community priorities, and recommendations from this report. CAC recommended that Council adopt the Regional Recreational Needs Assessment and approve in principle the recommendation within, and further that Council and staff commit to a detailed review of the strategy of the implementation of policy and projects. I so move.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that council adopt the Regional Recreational Needs Assessment and approve in principle the recommendations within, and further that council and staff commit to a detailed review of the strategy of implementation of policy and projects. Is there any discussion? Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the Regional Needs Assessment and approval in principle of the recommendations within, and further that council and staff commit to a detailed review of the strategy of implementation of policy and projects. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. The motion is carried. Thank you.
Next recommendation is regarding Accessibility Advisory Committee. At the July 8th, 2019 meeting of CAC, Director Bedingfield read the staff report outlining the creation of the terms of reference for this committee. Council is asked to support these terms in principle to allow this committee to accept members and begin meeting. CAC recommended that Council approve in principle the terms of reference for the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and further to amend Policy Statement G57, Committees of Council, to include the Accessibility Advisory Committee. I so move.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that the council approve in principle the terms of reference for the Accessibility and Advisory Committee, and further to amend the policy statement G57, Committees of Council, be amended to include the Accessibility Advisory Committee. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. Motion is carried. Thank you.
Next recommendation to Council, King's Transit 2019-2020 operational and capital budgets. At the July 8th, 2019 meeting of CAC, Glenn Bannon, General Manager for the King's Transit Authority, gave a presentation about the proposed 2019-2020 operating and capital budgets. These budgets are reviewed and approved each spring by member municipalities. The proposed operating budget for King's Transit is $177,819, and the proposed capital budget is $16,000. There is an additional $83,000 to be funded by member municipal units. CAC recommended that Council approve the King's Transit Authority approved 2019-2020 op budget in the amount of $889,082, in which $177,816, which should be 819, I believe, sorry, is the town of Kentville. And the 2019-2020 capital budget in the amount of $80,000, of which $16,000 is the town of Kentville's share under the municipal agreement. The total commitment to the town of Kentville 2019-2020 operational budget is $193,816. I so move with that one amendment.
Thank you. Thank you. I am also requesting an amendment or an addition to this motion, that and further, this amount is an additional $3,416 to the approved 2019-2020 approved operating budget for King's Transit Authority under line number 123-60-100.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. Sir, Councillor Gerard,
Yes.
you had your light on?
Yes, I did. What are there seems to be a difference in amounts, the 177,816 and 170, and then 80 and 83. Which is correct?
They're all correct.
I think the solicitor is highlighting that.
What's that?
The solicitor was hiding
In the
discrepancy.
motion, as I understood, Deputy Mayor to say the 177,816 was
Mhm.
819.
Mm-hmm.
The total there ends in a 16.
Yeah, we have 19 up here. and
You have
it's
19 up there and then,
16 down here.
okay, so
Yeah,
it's
so we-
16.
And 16 down here.
Okay.
Appears that it should be a 16.
Okay.
Should be a 16 up top. Is
Yep.
that what Councillor
So the
Gerard was
motion
asking?
Yeah.
should be a 16. Like.
Rather than a 19, sorry. My addition is not as good as yours, Councillor Gerard.
No, it's just,
Yeah, because it says 819,
Yeah.
but it is.
So the
it
motion appears to be correct, the background appears to
Right.
be wrong. At least the math in the motion adds up.
Yeah.
yes.
816. Yeah. So I so move as outlined with the amendment that Mayor Snow.
Okay,
Noted.
so we're good?
Yep, sorry.
Okay.
Are you ready for the question?
Question?
The question is on adoption of the King's Transit Authority budget. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you.
Next recommendation is regarding Kings Point to Point 2019-2020 operational and capital budgets. As at the July 8th, 2019 meeting of CAC, Faye Brown, manager of Kings Point to Point Transit Society, gave a presentation about the proposed 2019-2020 budgets. These budgets are reviewed and approved each spring by member municipalities. The proposed operating budget for Kings Point to Point is $12,103, and the proposed capital budget is $2,697. CAC recommended that Council approve the Kings Point to Point approved 2019-2020 operating budget in the amount of $605,994, of which $92,050 is the municipal contribution to operations, and $12,103, which is $1.93 POP, is town of Kentville's share based on population. Oh, okay. And the approved 2019-2020 capital budget in the amount of $165,000, of which $2,697 is the town of Kentville share based on population. The total commitment to the town of Kentville 2019-2020 operational budget is $14,800. I so move.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that council approve the Kings Point to Point approved 2019-2020 operating budget for the town of Kentville. Is there any discussion? Are you ready for the question?
Question?
Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you.
Next recommendation is regarding the Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, PACE. At the meeting of the July 8th, 2019 meeting of CAC, Mr. Lutz and Mr. Boyle of Equilibrium Engineering gave a presentation about the PACE program. This is a financing model for clean energy that may be available to Kentville residents. PACE has opportunities for partnership with municipalities to access funding through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. Equilibrium is requesting $5,000 to support the logistics and grant application for this project. CAC recommended that council approve to fund a joint grant proposal to FCM for property assessed clean energy, funding supported by Equilibrium Engineering of Kentville in the amount of $5,000 from the Town of Kentville Operating Reserve, in addition to the approved 2019-2020 approved operating budget. I so move.
Thank you. And I am requesting an amendment to this. So after the words supported by Equilibrium Engineering of Kentville, to include the words for setup and execution of the program. Because for $5,000, we're not getting a program.
Right.
What we get is the setup and execution of a program.
So moved.
Thank you. Discussion?
Question?
Give a green light, your worship.
Green light? Oh, Councillor Ballin, sorry.
No, thank you, Worship. I'm just glad to see this come back to us. Many of you know I spent hours, many hours putting together the PACE program 4 years ago, which didn't quite get to the final steps, so hopefully this will. And my dream at that time was to make Kentville a solar town, such as Halifax is, so we'll see if we can make this happen, but let's give it a shot.
Sounds good.
There's lots of sun out there.
Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. All right, we'll move on to reports, and the reports will be added to the public record under single motion at the end of presentations. So we'll start with Councillor Andrew, please.
All right. Highlights. Well, looks pretty quiet. The Kings Point to Point AGM. I feel like I talked about that last meeting we were at, but or sometime recently. But the Kings Point to Point AGM, I was there as an alternate, and it was neat to see them at a stage of growth. I was really impressed by their self-determination. I guess I'll put it that way. They're a passionate, community-based group, and they have a vision for the future. And they are, and I learned, I think in the committee meeting synopsis, I think I maybe made a few notes there, but they are part of a vastly growing network. And as there's more and more talk about accessibility, this is, they stand alone, but they are part of a network that is across the province. And I can't remember the number, but there's quite a number, dozens of other agencies that are providing accessible transportation. And so it's a huge issue for a lot of our folks, whether because of various physical challenges or age or whatever it is. So it was good to be part of that, and it was neat to be there for the announcement that they'd received funding that was resulting in 2 new vehicles. And there had also been, I think I mentioned actually, that there had been discussion of perhaps merging with another organization. This group is really unique in how it sees itself, and that probably is not something on the horizon for them as an organization, I would say. So, anyway, I was there just as an alternate, but it was interesting nonetheless. Yeah. Anyway, a few other meetings. Dalhousie local government meeting. It was, I think, it was not on anybody's radar from any municipal unit, but it was. I was there with a few Kings County staff people, and it was good. It was just a good discussion, and as was the lunch and learn, as we're trying to learn to be more diverse and accepting in how we do things. So.
Excellent. Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the last council meeting attended was June 24th, and the last CAC was July 8th, of course. July 10th, we had our Investment Advisory Committee where we reviewed the reports and recommendations from our IA, and the market value at June 30th was just north of 13 million. June 24th, we had our audit meeting where we met with the auditors and reviewed the draft financials. June 26th, we had a building code meeting. Representatives from the County of Kings and our own resident director of planning gave us an overview of the building code and what they look for within specific industries and changes of use, etc. July 8th, I attended the AT, Active Transportation Workshop, where Director Bedingfield gave us an overview of the plan and what the next steps would look like over the next 15 years. It's a very comprehensive plan, which certainly will make Kentville more attractive from an AT perspective. July 17th was a council meeting which was held in camera, discussing a land issue. And I believe the only other item was July 16th, Lunch and Learn from King's Transit. And where Glenn Bannon, the manager there, gave us an overview of some of the challenges and what they're doing to overcome them. And I was on vacation last week, so it's pretty sparse. So, but
right.
thank you. That's my report.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ballin, please.
Thank you, Worship. Date of last council meeting attended June 24th. Last council advisory committee July 8th. There was no governance sessions in July. Kentville Water Commission sent regrets due to a heavy workload in my personal life. July 17th, Valley Waste Management met, and more on that later. So under Valley Waste Management, we had our staff and committee reports, an in-camera session regarding a former member of Valley Waste Regional Management Authority. Just a few tidbits for you from Andrew Garrett, our regional coordinator, such as the Nova Scotia Recycling Program effective early 2020 will also include microwaves, video game equipment, GPS units, and external hard drives. The Restaurant Association of Canada has created a guide for restaurants to transition away from single-use plastics, such as forks and knives, etc., which includes opting out of certain items and switching to compostable or biodegradable packaging. Education staff at Valley Waste completed 84 educational activities and reached nearly 3,000 people from April to June of this year, such as 8 schools, 29 businesses, 10 litter cleanups, and other activities. Valley Waste Hotline received over 2,400 calls from April to June, and the top 3 issues were, and there were many, but most frequent calls were on spring cleanup, sorting, and tipping fees. Miscellaneous events, I as well attended the Active Transportation Workshop, and we had an in-camera land legal meeting, and I also failed to mention, I also attended the building code workshop on the 26th of June. That's my report.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Councillor Maxwell.
Yes. Let's see. I attended all the meetings as listed there. I did put in the in-camera session under a governance session, but I was there. June 25th, KBC AGM. KBC presented their goals and budget for 2019-2020. I attended the building code presentation on June 26th, which will run through the building code with the building inspector from the County of Kings. Attended the Central Kings graduation on June 27th and presented the Town of Kentville bursary to Gillian Smith. I attended the Pool House grand opening on July 4th. I attended the concert in Oakdean Park on July 4th. The concert featured Hush, and there was a good crowd and everyone was enjoying the music. July 8th, I attended the Active Transportation Plan Priority Setting Workshop, a chance for council to look at the active transportation plan for the town and provide some direction to staff. July 9th, I attended the Farm Credit Canada's official grand opening of their new building on Park Street. July 11th, I attended the SEED event in Centre Square. The Centre for Entrepreneurship, Education and Development had their participants showing and selling their products in Centre Square. There were some great ideas and wonderful products. July 15th, I attended the Speak Up Lunch and Learn. It was a presentation on the importance of not accepting discriminatory language or behavior and how to address it when we are faced with such language. Speak up rather than ignoring. July 18th, I attended another concert in Oakdean Park. This one was put on by Bernie's Inc., And there was a very large crowd in attendance for that one. Everyone thoroughly enjoyed the music. Bursary Committee, I can now name the recipients of the Town of Kemptville bursaries. The Nola Folker Hill bursary, valued at $1,500, was given to Abigail Eyre. The other three $500 bursaries were presented to Jillian Smith, David Archibald, and Andrew Johnson. And we want to congratulate all recipients and wish them well on their future academic pursuits. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Pulsifer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The last council meeting that I attended was May 27th. I was away for several weeks, so I did not attend the last council meeting. So my report is a bit short, but anyway, however, July the 8th, I attended the Active Transportation Workshop. A brief overview of the plan was presented by our Director of Parks and Recreation. This is a long-term vision to be implemented over a 15-year time frame with high, medium, and low priority recommendations. July 16th, attended the King's Transit Lunch and Learn. Some of the councillors, the mayor and CAO met with the manager of King's Transit to further discuss his presentation to CAC on July 8th. It was an opportunity to ask questions to him concerning King's Transit operations. July 17th, I attended the Kemptville Water Commission, discussed operations and financial updates for the Kemptville Water Utility. July 23rd, I attended the regular monthly meeting of Kings Point to Point, and thank you to Councillor Andrew for attending the general meeting that I was away from. So a regular meeting of Kings Point to Point was held on July 23rd. Our special guest that night was Rob Frost, Deputy CAO, County of Kings. Following his presentation, there was some discussion on possible efficiencies in our operations. I'll go into that in a little more detail. Down here, July 18th, I attended the Oakdean Park Summer Concert. Bernie Zink and his band performed on stage, and it was a well-attended event, lots of people there, and it was a beautiful summer evening, and all in all, a great concert. July 18th, I also attended the Hardware Gallery exhibit opening. It was a new display of photography from members of the Kings County Photography Group, and that opened on that night of July 18th. There was some wonderful photos of local interest. They're now hanging in the gallery, and it's well worth stopping by to take a peek. The Kings Point to Point meeting, I'll go into a little more detail. We did have a presentation by Rob Frost, well, I keep calling him Frost, but anyway, re-grants versus budgetary line items and possible efficiencies. It was agreed that a business case on possible efficiencies would be completed by the end of 2019. The municipality would like a funding agreement with Kings Point to Point for the next 3 to 5 years. The budget revenue increase of 18.3% over last June, with a drive increase of 20.4% over that same time period. So they're very busy, getting busier all the time. New projects, Kings Point to Point received the $100,000 in provincial funding for the purchase of 2 new vehicles. Seniors Minister Leo Glavine made the announcement of the funding on July the 5th, and these two vans will be accessible and are needed to transport more people with disabilities and in wheelchairs. Kings Point to Point provides a door-to-door service for residents of Kings County, and it gives people who live in outlying areas of the county the ability to go where they need to go, especially for medical appointments within the area as well as to Halifax hospitals. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Councillor Pulsifer. If I may, when the Deputy CAO of Kings County was at your meeting, did he mention why the County of Kings was not paying their full share of the operating funding at $1.93 per person based on population? They didn't mention it. So sorry, go ahead.
Well, they want to go from a grant basis to a
right.
Lined item.
Okay.
They don't want to have to go through this grant process each time.
Okay.
and they're looking at possible efficiencies with different aspects. You know, we, Kings Point to Point Board will, you know, we'll prepare the business plan that they're
Okay.
requesting, and, you know, we'll you know, show how some of their proposals really can't work as
Okay.
far as these possible efficiencies
Right.
that they're, you know, kind of referring to, but,
Okay,
yeah, that's.
okay. Because
according
according to our package
Mm-hmm,
that we received from Kings Point to Point, Kings County confirmed their total funding at $80,700,
Mhm.
which is actually 3.5 less than was requested from Kings Point to Point. And yet all the other
Mhm.
towns in this agreement have
I didn't
come
hear
up with
that
their
was-
totals,
yeah.
except for them. So I was just wondering if
Mhm.
perhaps he had
No.
mentioned why Kings County had opted to shortchange Kings Point to Point.
No.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Counselor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. Last council meeting was June 24th. Last CAC was June the 10th. Committee meetings, July 17th, I attended the Water Commission. 22nd, had a teleconference with Chief Giacchetto and David Walker, the NSAPG president, about the fall conference, which we are hosting. June 26th, I was at the building code presentation, and July the 2nd, I attended the promotion of Sergeant Kevin Pick. That is my report.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to my report. So I guess we'll look at what I would consider the highlights. The Valley Wren AGM was definitely a highlight, and the copy of their annual report is worth reading if you haven't seen it. Specifically, I would say page 6, because it talks about the manufacturing task force. They actually were mentioned in Hansard's in the legislation last week because of the work that they've been doing on the manufacturing task force. Halifax is actually looking at duplicating what the Valley Wren is doing, and there's several constituents in Ontario who are looking at what they're doing. So there's some incredible work going on. The other thing as well is that ACOA has popped its head up and said, we're very interested in the work you're doing, and we have funding available. So that's really great news for the Valley Wren. The next AGM that I attended was the Kentville Business Community, and it was, again, very well attended. It was a very good news story of what's going on in downtown Kentville. And when you just look at our numbers, 96% occupancy, and people can't get enough. So if you're somebody who owns property downtown that has an empty window, put a sign up, because I'm telling you it won't be vacant for very long. The REMAC meeting. So there was an exercise on the 12th of July. It was staff only, but they get together on the 12th of July and went through an exercise. There's another one planned for September, but it's actually going to be a surprise exercise. So basically, EMO will call something has happened, and we'll stage it. The other thing that we talked about at this was go bags, and some of these weather situations that have been happening, or forest fires and that. I mean, people are given 30 minutes to get out of their house. So if you put yourself in panic mode and try to figure out how to get out of your house in 30 minutes with everything that you're going to need potentially for 2 weeks, what would you pack? And so things like in this day and age, copies of your passports, your medical, your insurance, and all of those things. I mean, we don't typically think of them, but those should all be in the bottom of your go bag. You may not be able to keep your passport in there. It should be locked up in your safe, but you should have a copy of it, and a copy of stuff that you're going to need. I mean, think about it. If a forest fire went through and completely, leveled an entire neighborhood, having access to your insurance documents and that sort of thing, because these are the sort of things that other Canadians have already been through. So at some point he will come and talk to us about packing a go bag, and that's your bag that you pick up and you're out of your house in 30 minutes. Of course, CUPE negotiations. I went to Wolfville for the Green New Deal. It was a Canadian initiative. There's 81 other countries that have already bought into this. Again, quite interesting. NSCC King's Tech Convocation. There were 3 of them. It was incredible. I mean. 3 convocations, 3 valedictorians, and I'm going to tell you right now is that the students who are attending NSCC are a special, special bunch. Because when the first young woman got up and spoke, her valedictorian speech was so heartfelt, and I was just sitting there thinking, I mean, how's anybody going to top this? And then the next young man gets up, and he blew her out of the water. And then the last young woman gets up, and she took the house down. Jason Clark, the principal, called for a second round of applause because he was trying to get his emotions under control. And then the second round of applause finished, and he still wasn't back in control, because what she said was the reason that Nova Scotia Community College instructors go to school every day. It's people that are learning life skills to be used in their next job, and it was amazing. So if you ever get the chance, I mean, you don't have to attend all 3, but even just to attend one, it's pretty amazing. And we did our Kentville Business Park Food Truck Friday, of course, in torrential rain. But you know what? Go Power stepped up, and I have to say that that's the thing about our community, is that every time we do something, people really step up for it. We also had a conversation with the folks from the FCM Green Fund, again regarding FCM, regarding PACE and other municipal opportunities. And we brought home brochures from the FCM, but they're going to continue to provide us with updates as time goes on. I also had the true pleasure of attending the grade 8 graduation at KCA. Again, always one of those delightful events. A basic military qualification graduation up at Aldershot, and NECEC graduation. And then we did several thank you coffees for our different departments. When you consider when just before Apple Blossom, and then all the work that goes into the town and getting it ready to put us on show. Grand opening at the Kentville Pool. No matter what you say about Kentville, we are truly living what we talk about. When you look at that accessible, gender-neutral change room, we have put so many checks in the box without even checking boxes. We're just doing it because it's what's right for the people who are using it. Kings Point-to-Point funding announcement, $100,000 for 2 new accessible vehicles. I mean, woohoo! That was just absolutely wonderful. And the thing that people don't realize is that Kings Point-to-Point truly is there for the entire community. And if you have an appointment at a hospital in Halifax, you can get them to pick you up. It is 24 hours notice, but they're there for you. And particularly this summer, they have a lot more flexibility because when school is in, they are doing school runs. So there is that. But this is just one of those amazing, ground up, community-oriented committees that are just doing what's right. Louis Coutinho in Windsor, he was their CAO for 11 years, retired after 43 years as a municipal public servant. Attended the Farm Credit Canada opening in their new building out in the Kentville Business Park. What a beauty. If you get a chance, go in and check it out. I also attended the federal funding announcement for tourism, $584,000 for 3 tourism initiatives, plus the fact that Minister Leo Glavine announced $12 million in funding over the next 4 years for the Nova Scotia wine industry. We now have 23 wineries in Nova Scotia. So this is absolutely huge, and it's just, it's growing. We are where the Niagara region was 20 years ago. So if you think about where they are today, and you look to the future, we're in pretty good shape. Plus the fact that our government, both levels, federal and provincial, believe in what's happening, and there's funding coming that way. Another great thing I got to do was the Center for Entrepreneurship Juniorpreneur Camp. Again, if you are ever asked to be either one of their Dragon's Den judges or to talk to them about entrepreneurship, you have to do this. These are kids from age 9 to 15 who want to be entrepreneurs. And I am telling you, they are already entrepreneurs. They're just absolutely amazing. The rest of it you've already heard about. Kentville Lions Club barbecue at Rockwell's Home Hardware. I mean, they are just... They're just selling out every Friday, and the people who deliver stuff to Home Hardware are now starting to do their Friday deliveries so that they can eat at the Kentville Lions barbecue. So stop in and make it happen. I attended Scott Bryson's farewell on the 21st of July. It was supposed to be up in Cheverie. And anyway, I zigged instead of zagging at Brooklyn and ended up in the middle of nowhere. But I was on a beautiful highway with no potholes, and I just want to say that in the middle of Hants County. It was a beauty, but we finally found the place, and then it wasn't at the beach anymore. It was now back in Brooklyn. So we we drove for 2 hours to get back to Brooklyn. Anyway, it was a really nice farewell, quite well attended, and of course Scott did sing for everybody, and his daughter did inform everybody that her father cannot sing, so it's all good. And last but not least, I attended the Kings County public participation meeting on the 23rd of July for their LUB and MPS. And that is my report. So if we could have a motion to accept the members of council reports as presented. Thank you. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that members of council reports be adopted as presented. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to our correspondence. CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a letter to be shared with council. I'll just really hit the first paragraph, and it announces that Mayor Snow, to Mayor Snow, I'm pleased to inform you that you have been appointed to the Board of Directors for the Nova Scotia Municipal Finance Corporation as per order in Council 2019-181. Your term commences July 1st, 2019 and ends on June 30th, 2020. A few more details associated with that, of course, signed by Minister Chuck Porter and copy to your President, Wayne Mason.
Thank you.
So the next three pieces of correspondence, as I had noted earlier, to the authors, if they're here or paying attention, Sherry Harvey, Kathy Palmer, and Sandra Corbin. Those pieces of correspondence will be collected and inventoried and kept in the event that council has a decision around 1 Oteen Avenue and the Open Arms project. Those are there for your information.
Thank you.
The next correspondence, all three of them, C, D, and E, are associated with Condon Avenue. Apologize for a sec. Did I skip over it? Oh, but I have them here, don't I?
They're not numbered.
Oh. No problem. Okay, so they're not numbered. Okay, just give me 1 second, folks. So that would mean they're at the end? Okay. That looks like the first one. Excellent, thank you. Okay, so I might be in the wrong order. Let me just see if I can find Lori's instead of Lisa's. It looks like Lisa's is up first. Thank you. Okay, so as long as council recognizes that, I'm reading 6D first. I'm sure Lori's and Janet's will also be there. My name is Lisa Sellers, and I'm the citizen of the town of Kemptville and reside at 90 Park Street. On Friday, June 21st, 2019, I suffered extensive flooding to both my property and basement. After speaking with both the city CAO, Mark Phillips, as well as the town of Kemptville's insurance adjuster, Mike Ward, I'm now reaching out to yourselves as I feel you should be aware of this situation. On July 21st, I responded after many text messages from my children, who were at the home at the time, of my property being flooded. A video is provided. I left work shortly after 3 p.m. and made it home by 3:20 p.m. to find the Park Street has extensive water running down the street, as well as Memorial Park's parking lot was underwater. There was unusual runoff down Miller Street, but what I witnessed coming through my backyard and my neighbor's property was nothing short of a river moving so swiftly it had rapids at the grade changes of my neighbor's property, living upwards on Park Street, where no body of water was present before. Please see enclosed pictures. With some investigating as to what led to the cause of this amount of runoff, water leading to the destruction of both my property as well as my basement, I found myself at the end of Parkview, one street up running parallel to Park. I found both extensive runoff erosion, blocked catch basins on both the street and town property, and an abundance of hay in the street, town property, and residential property. In speaking with Parkview residents, I've become aware that this has been an ongoing problem, given that Dr. Burry, who resides at the top of the street, has been excavating his lot, changing the grade, as well as removing all trees and vegetation, and using hay to prevent erosion, which has led to excessive runoff, as well as erosion of the properties adjoining his property. Again, please find attached pictures. In speaking with one Parkview resident, they made an initial phone call to town employee Richard Boyd to inform him that flooding was occurring on Parkview and the catch basins were clogging with debris. It went to voicemail, and later that afternoon the call was returned to X, expressing that someone from the town would be up. No one from the town responded except a street sweeper to remove debris from the street that evening after our flooding had occurred. In speaking with the town of Kemptville's insurance adjuster, Mike Ward, at a meeting in his office at 10 a.m. on Thursday the 27th, I have become aware that both himself as well as the town's officials are aware of Dr. Burry's action on his property as flooding occurred to a Parkview resident down the street from Dr. Burry's last year, washing away and eroding a backyard and driveway from his tenants, costing thousands of dollars damage, yet no one agreed to fault. So, with the fact that we encountered a very heavy rainfall in a short period of time that caused the town numerous problems near my property at 90 Park Street, we suffered flooding of my property and basement that would have been averted if the town had done something last year when the problem flooding first arose, due to the excavation and grading of Dr. Burry's property. If Kemptville had a grading permit, we would have enlisted the advice of an engineer, been required to file for a grading plan, and being approved. Due to the scope of work he was taking on and the additional runoff and erosion issues would have been addressed by installing conduit and additional catch basins to divert the eventual water problems. In having been advised to exhaust all options to myself, speaking with my insurance adjuster, the town of Kemptville insurance adjuster, the residents of Parkview, as well as the office of John Lohr, I am writing to you today as my last resort in which to resolve this issue, as every additional day that passes, the situation in my basement, which was fully furnished and prepared to withstand any water issues that may occur naturally, the possibility of both rot and mold become an issue. I strongly suggest you investigate my cause and speak with the required individuals as to resolving this issue, as my next step is to both bring a civil suit to the town of Kemptville, Richard Boyd as well as Dr. Burry, for negligence on their part, as well as making my story public. and it's signed by Lisa Sellers. So that's the first of 3 pieces of correspondence associated with Condon. This would look like Miss Specs. It is. So this one is complete with pictures, folks. So I'll just read her body of her correspondence, and I know there's additional correspondence at the end from previous surveys, but we'll review this here. So again, this is from Janet Speck at 23 Condon Avenue. On Friday afternoon, June 21st, a heavy rainstorm passed through Kemptville at approximately 2 p.m. I was in Halifax and received a phone call and video from the neighbor, Bunny Bennett, telling me of the flood on Condon Avenue. The video was sent to me at 2:45 p.m. and it showed the intensity of water flowing around the properties and down the street. It also showed Town of Kemptville crew had arrived on site investigating the issue. I arrived home at approximately 4 p.m. and the town crew was placing sandbags at the end of the driveways and on the street to divert the water into the drain in front of Ian Cox's house next door to me. At the same time, I was with the town crew when they opened the top of the drain to let the sandbag diverting water into the drain system. The bottom of the drain was empty. No water was passing through the underground pipe from the stream to the drainage system. Obviously, there was a blocked drainage pipe. Once the sandbags were in place, the top removed from the street drain, water flow on the street reduced as water was now flowing into the drain system. Storm damage, water has been flowing around my house, yard, and shed for approximately 2 hours. The impact on my property was significant, including, and Ms. Speck notes there that she had water in her crawl space, gravel and mud along 3 sides of the house, gravel in front of the house, water flowing over and around the front cedar deck, organic debris throughout the entire property, mud and water stains up 3 feet on both sides of the house, one side of the shed, mud up against the wood siding, mud and debris over the driveway, and topsoil in the front garden. And it has eroded and disappeared. Remedies, Town of Kemptville, Mark Phillips has made himself very available and was on site Friday, Saturday, and again on Monday. Sandbags were installed within 1 to 2 hours of the event. The backhoe was on site Friday and again on Monday and Tuesday, investigating and repairing. Landscaping staff were on my property Monday evening, raking gravel off the lawn and garden, removing new pea stone covered in mud, plus removing some organic debris. Pea gravel was replaced on Tuesday and a section of lawn was seeded. I'm very appreciative of the action and work of the Town of Kemptville, Mark Phillips, and the landscape crew. However, my property is not back to normal or in the state it was before the flood. Under the category of insurance, she said, I contacted my insurance company late Friday afternoon and informed them. System Care investigated my crawl space on Friday night and decided to let it dry out. Mark Vardy from Gates Insurance was on site investigating the incident on Friday evening. A Money Intact insurance adjuster, Todd Corcoran, called and asked if I was filing a claim. I suggested he come look at the property as being his first step. He arrived on Tuesday afternoon and assessed for inside property damage along with the contractor. He informed me insurance does not cover any outdoor damage expenses, only indoor. Janet states here, on Sunday, June 23rd, I shoveled mud from my walkway to enable weekly Sunday visit with my father, who's in a wheelchair. Otherwise, he would not have been able to enter the house. She opened all windows in the back door to enable crawl space to dry and left the hatch open. On Monday the 24th, I brush scrubbed the side of the house to remove mud, plus stayed home from work to air dry crawl space. She has some of the photos there, and they're labeled some of the spaces inside and out of the impact of the event, and speaks to the pea stone and landscaping noted earlier in her words. Letter to the Town of Kemptville. She notes in 2015 a similar flood occurred on Condon Avenue, and she prepared a letter, shared it with the neighbors who signed and submitted it. I followed up with a meeting with the Town of Kemptville engineer Fred Wynot, who informed me the town was aware of the increased water in the storm on Condon Avenue. He said it was due to the excess runoff from the Prospect Avenue to Valley Waste resource site on the west end of Kentville. Also, he indicated the storm system under the Condon Avenue and Park Street are old and too small to handle the increased volume of water, as the upgrading of the underground pipe to a larger system would be extremely expensive. Mr. Wynot indicated the town would be building a retention pond next to the access road to slow the release of water into the stream as a temporary fix until the larger capital project was considered by council. The retention pond has not yet been built 4 years after 2015 flood. I followed up with Fred in 2016 asking him about the status of the project. No action resulted. Other relevant impact, the Gerard development on Park Street has also impacted the water issues on my property. The town approved their site plan for development of the condominiums. After construction was underway, plans changed and the buildings were built 4 to 6 feet higher than originally planned. Also, the pine tree lined bank was removed, leaving an open hill of sand and no trees to absorb any water. As a result of these two unknown activities, the water flow into my backyard and neighbors has resulted. This has been brought to the attention of the Gerard family on several occasions throughout the last 2 years, and no action occurred to date. Summary, water volume has steadily increased in stream on Condon Avenue since I lived there 23, Condon for 22 years. I experienced approximately 10 floods on the street within 15 and 2019, and the 2019 being the most significant. No action was taken by the town. After all, Condon residents requested action in 2015. The drainage system totally failed on June 21st. Action requested. More action is required to bring my property back to the state it was before the flood. Items requiring attention include topsoil, cleaning of the house, finish removal of organic material, and so forth. I'm requesting the town of Kemptville either do this work or reimburse me to have this work completed. I have not gathered any quotes from landscapers, but can provide once I hear back from the town. More action is required to ensure a flood like 2015 and 19 does not occur again. Specifically, a significant capital budget item for new larger pipes underground on Condon Avenue is required. If this is not approved and completed in the summer fall of 2019, I request a retention pond be created immediately at the top of the stream along the access road site above. And the third thing, that the Gerard family should be required to landscape the sand bank to create natural water absorption control, plus install adequate landscaping to direct the runoff from their property away from the residents living on Condon Avenue. I look forward to receiving a response. Respectfully submitted, Janet Speck. And then, folks, some of the appendices include that previous correspondence in 2015 to Fred, signed by those residents referenced in her letter. Okay. The last one is from Lori. Is it Van Tassel?
Yeah.
We'll get to that to confirm at the end of her letter. So it's dated July 10th, and it is referencing the 2019 incident. On June 21st, while I was at work, I received a message indicating I should go home to my apartment. It was flooding, and my dogs were still inside. I approached my apartment building to be greeted on Park Street by 2 Kemptville police cruisers with flashing lights and Kemptville police officer directing traffic. A loader from the town of Kemptville carrying sandbags and several individuals standing around looking at the flooding. The water flowing down Condon Avenue was like a raging river. The water was over the parking area at 112 Park Street and completely covered my entrance to my apartment. My apartment is in the basement of 112 Park Street. It has a separate outside entrance. I estimate the level of water outside my apartment entrance to be approximately 3 feet, all of which was covered with the muddy water and debris. The back entrance to my apartment was also covered in muddy water and debris. I have attached photos showing the water level mark on the front door. I only had sandals on and I had to wade through the muddy water to reach the entrance of the apartment building. Once inside, my landlord, Craig Gerard, had thankfully gone into my apartment and rescued my 2 small dogs. As you can well imagine, they were very nervous and scared about what was happening. After speaking to Craig, I had to wade through the water using the back door entrance to enter my apartment. The water in the apartment was overwhelming. Everything that was touching the floor was now covered in muddy water, and that muddy water was approximately 6 inches deep. Pictures are there attached. This is not the first flood I've experienced at the address. The prior flood was in 2015 and was bad, but not nearly as devastating as the 21st flood. At the time of the 2015 flood, I spoke to town employees, workers, I am not sure of their names, who told me the problem would be fixed. The Works Department knew that the problem was, but did not fix it, in my view. I have attached the copy of the letter was sent to the residents of Condon Avenue and also signed by Ron Gerard, owner of 112 Park Street, asking for a long-term fix for the flooding problem. Condon Street resident Janet Speck had a follow-up meeting with the Town of Kentville engineer Fred Wynot. Attached is a copy of Ms. Speck's account of the 2019 flood. In this account, she references a 2015 letter followed up with a meeting with Mr. Wynot. In this account, Ms. Speck indicates Mr. Wynot, who informed me the town was aware of the increased water in the stream in Condon Avenue. He said it was due to the access road. I would repeat what I already read earlier, Council, if that's appropriate. I'll skip over that. The retention pond was never built. I have detailed the 2015 incident to show the town of Kentville knew the water problem that existed on Condon Avenue, but it did not remedy the situation. I have tenant insurance and have had an adjuster come out and prepare a report for my insurance company. After 2 weeks and 1 day, I have received notification I will not be covered as the water came in from an outside source. Therefore, I am looking to the town of Kentville for the loss of property and other expenses that I have incurred, as I do not believe this to be an act of God, rather an act of negligence on part of the town. I've attached a list of items lost, not recoverable, in my view, as well as the estimated monetary value associated with these items. I look forward to your quick action response. Thank you, Lori Van Tassel. I will not hit those items in detail. They're there for council. They may feel private in nature. I will say that the value is $3,516.93, ranging from meals to equipment to sofa beds and the like. It's there for your review. That is the piece of correspondence from Ms. Van Tassel.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to our new business. The first item is the Kings County Municipal Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw.
Just getting caught up there, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you.
There we go.
Thank you.
Okay.
So the Source Water Protection Advisory Committee sent the municipality of County of Kings a letter on the 30th of April 2019 from a motion made at the committee meeting on Tuesday, March the 5th, 2019. The motion requested the opportunity to review the Kings County draft policies concerning the Kentville Wellfield Protection Area in the new municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw, and to also review the policy statements on backup drinking water supply areas. The county planning director provided access to the draft documentation, and I, the chair, attended the public participation meeting held on July 23rd at 2019. Public input is being solicited until the 31st of July prior to presentation for council for first reading. I'm requesting this council's support for a letter to the Kings County Planning Advisory Committee with regards to the MPS and LUB review, requesting stronger language to protect the Kentville source water system, to mirror the language in the Kentville MPS and LUB, to acknowledge the Kentville Source Water Protection Plan, and to ensure that the town of Kentville is consulted prior to issuance of development permits or agreements in our well field. So I'm requesting a motion to send a letter to Kings County PAC with regards to the MPS LUB review concerns with the Kentville Water Commission well field protection. Thank you. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that council approve the sending of a letter to Kings County PAC with regards to the MPS LUB review concerning the Kentville Water Commission wellfield protection. Discussion. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. Motion is carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to our next piece of new business, Condon Avenue Infrastructure, CAO.
Your Worship. Okay. So, Condon Avenue, we speak of a few items, insurance-related, infrastructure-related, next steps, and of course, if you do engage in discussion, I would remind council that we do have an in-camera related to legal and insurance-related items here, so let me get through this first and see where your discussion goes. The town of Kemptville acknowledges that some properties, yards, and even basements on the or near Condon Avenue were significantly impacted by flooding immediately after a rainfall event in June of 2019. Specifically, on June 21st, 2019, 77 millimeters of rain fell on Kemptville over 3 hours. This was a very intense weather event, possibly related to changing weather patterns caused by climate change that resulted in stormwater system being overwhelmed. So a few of the discussion points: evaluation of negligence. The town of Kemptville insurance adjuster spent considerable time and resources assessing the possibility of negligence on the part of the town relating to property damage caused by the storm on June 21st, 2019. The adjuster subsequently submitted a report that states that within the evidence available, the town was not negligent in the maintenance of the stormwater system on Condon Avenue. Specifically, the insurance company states that the circumstances surrounding this weather incident do not suggest any liability on part of the town of Kemptville. The report also states that any claims brought against the town relating to this event will be denied. Residents with inquiries and potential legal action should contact Mike Ward at Marsh Adjustment Limited. Infrastructure update: on June 24th, 2019, Kemptville Town Council passed a motion to engage a consulting firm to provide estimates on a site-specific capital investment in the stormwater system relating to climate change for late addition to the 2019-20 capital budget. After this meeting, Able Engineering was appointed to assess the infrastructure, survey the site, design, and cost a stormwater system upgrade. Currently, Able has indicated that this project would be under $200,000 and would take place in September and October, again pending council approval. And I'll say that $200,000 was updated as recently as today. Today is Monday. Next steps: should council approve the recommendation for a late addition of the 2019-20 capital works plan, letters would be delivered to the homeowners on Condon Avenue and adjacent properties outlining the work to be completed and the approximate timeline of activities. Budget implications: Able Engineering will provide a more detailed budget of the infrastructure upgrade. However, it is estimated to be less than $200,000. And the recommendation is as follows: that council approve the proposed Condon Avenue stormwater infrastructure upgrade to $200,000 as a late addition to the 2019-20 capital works plan.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. And CAO, I'd like to make an amendment or an addition to this, and further, this amount is an additional $200,000 to the approved 2019-2020 approved capital budget.
Okay.
Thank you. So it has been moved and seconded that council approve the proposed Condon Avenue stormwater infrastructure upgrade up to $200,000. And further, this amount is an additional $200,000 to the approved 2019-2020 approved capital budget. Discussion? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Assuming it will just come from reserves? Yes, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Maxwell?
Will this upgrade give any kind of guarantee that we won't be faced with this type of issue again?
No guarantee, Councillor.
Councillor Bolland?
Thank you. And sort of as a linkage follow-up on that, the comments regarding the Gerard property, is there any linkages to, obviously there's a link between a lot of water and then what the water's bringing down the street. Is there any comments by the adjuster on that, or next steps, or that's a separate, it is a separate item, but
Yeah.
there are
it's,
linkages, so.
Separate item, I would say, sorry.
Solicitor?
No, I was just going to say that it's a separate item and you really should keep them separate. This was before CAC, there was full discussion at that time, but these are separate issues, and I just wouldn't want to see you confuse them. Keep your discussion separate, Your
Yep.
Worship, is my
No.
recommendation.
Thank you.
Just trying to be thorough. Thank you.
That's good. Councillor Bolland, you're happy with that answer?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right. Is there any further discussion? All right. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you. All right, our next piece of business. So I received a letter of resignation from CAO Mark Phillips on Friday, July 26, 2019. CAO Phillips has accepted a position with Windsor West Hants effective September 16, 2019. Windsor West Hants released a press notification at 4 p.m. on Friday afternoon. Council and staff were notified on Friday afternoon of the impending departure. CAO Phillips' last day with the town of Kentville will be Friday, September the 13th, 2019. There is no action required at this time, as this matter will be discussed in a closed session as labor following this meeting. All right. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next item. I believe, Councillor Maxwell, you requested that crosswalk safety be added to the agenda. And I just wish to add that we have received several emails with regards to crosswalk safety, and we are still awaiting the full police report and recommendations. So, Councillor?
Okay, no, I was just, looking and listening to people about crosswalk safety in the town of Kentville, and I guess if we're, taking steps to look at that overall, that would be good. My suggestion, I have a suggestion up on Belcher, where we've had one fatal accident, would be using the slow down signs as you approach that crosswalk from both ends, going up and coming down, so that as a person comes up, they see that just before the crosswalk. And I've seen people put their foot on the brakes when they see those, and then the refocus would be up to the crosswalk. And both areas are ones where people have a tendency to pick up speed going up the hill and picking up speed coming down the hill. And if there's just any way that we could make that crosswalk safer, or all of our crosswalks safer, by using those slow down signs, I think it's something that is worth taking a look at. So
Excellent. Thank you very much. Councillor Bolland.
A good suggestion. I'll throw this one into the think tank as well. I made a comment to Director Wynot a couple of times 4 years ago about the parking space right at the Lawton's drugstore across the street. The sight lines approaching that crosswalk are brutal because there's often a vehicle parked there and you can't see someone. I like to have staff look at that again. I don't mind giving up a parking space for the sake of someone that's stepping out there you can't see. And the same situation is at the Tim Hortons as well. But the one here by Lawton's is terrible.
Excellent
It's
recommendation.
worthwhile taking a look at.
Somebody out there must have heard you, and they have preempted you. They've gone out and assessed all of our crosswalks and the legal limits and everything. So we will be getting a report on that.
Yeah, apparently
at
some of our our measurements are incorrect, and I've heard that about a year ago
Yeah, it's all done.
from our staff in blue. So.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Councillor Pulsfer.
Thank you. I note that in some towns or communities at the crosswalks, they have those orange flags on either side of the crosswalk, which definitely, it shows up even when they're not in someone's hand. If you pick those up and go across the crosswalk, it definitely, raises awareness. But I always notice them when you're driving along and say, oh, okay, there's both sides. Port Williams has them there, and you do take note. So it's kind of a simple suggestion, but I think whatever we can do to, help make more safety in the town, it's, definitely important.
Thank you. Nothing further? All right, we'll move on then. So the floor is now open for public comments. If you wish to make a comment, please state your name and address and subject matter. You will have 10 minutes. All right, all good. So the the council has confidential business. There are 2 items concerning labor, 1 item concerning land, and 3 legal issues of business which must be conducted in a closed session. We require a motion to go into a closed session to discuss the agenda items. There will be recommendations coming from this discussion, and we will return to Facebook Live upon completion of the presentations and discussion. If I could have a motion, please. Thank you. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that council move into a closed session. The question is on adoption of the motion to move into a closed session. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And the time is 8:20. All right, if you need a biological break, you've got 5 minutes, and top up your water, and we'll see you all back here. Jennifer, if you could